If Ukraine does not survive, the United Nations will not survive. Have no illusions.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm very happy to welcome everyone today for our next lecture in the Wartime lecture series. After the last week when we couldn't have a lecture due to outages in Kiev, but this week has been a bit better. We hope it will hold. If I may remind you, in our Wartime lecture series, we reflect on everything that's been going on in Ukraine since the full-scale invasion of Russia and full-scale war since February, and we talk and discuss and reflect on how we deal with that and what are the consequences and how we deal with consequences. And this project is brought to you by Kyiv-Mogilянська Alumni Association and School for Policy Analysis and by Kyivo-Mogilянська University in general. We also with the generous support of Justus Liebig University of Gießen, from all these institutions we will have representatives today. If I may again remind you, I'm Osipchuk Anna, and I'm a research director of School of Policy Analysis, and I will be moderating and commenting this lecture. And we are very happy to welcome Rostислав Semkів today as a lecturer, and who will talk on satire and the place of satire in reflections or in coping with the war in Ukraine. And Rostислав Semkів is my colleague in Kyiv-Mogilянськa Academy, and he is the associate professor in the literature department. For some reason, you can't see the picture. I'm not sure. Hope everything will work. So welcome, Rostislav. And commenting on today's lecture will be Professor Thomas Daiber from Justus Liebig University and Institute of Slavic Philology at this university. And I think it's a very interesting detail that Rostislav has a course on satire and humor in European literature in Kyiv-Mogilянськa Academy, and Thomas have the same course in Gießen University. So we will really have a very, I think, professional discussion on one hand. On the other hand, as a sociologist, I'm looking forward on getting some new knowledge. And so I welcome Rostislav and Thomas, and the floor is yours, Rostislav. So, yes.
Yes, thank you. Good evening to everyone. Well, I'm going to talk about the new span of satire in Ukrainian literature. Please put in my presentation because the first slide is quite understandable and important. So if we can have the presentation now. Okay, so this topic may look somehow suspicious. Yes, the contemporary war in Ukraine and the birth of a new Ukrainian satire. Two ways for suspicion, because how war is connected with laughter, with humor, it's a question, yes. And another one, was not there satire in Ukrainian literature before? Then we have the birth of a new Ukrainian satire. And yes, there is an answer to each of these questions, and I'm going to make some reflections during this next 30 or 40 minutes. And in general, I'm going to say four things that are connected with Ukrainian literature, even more broader with Ukrainian culture, and also with the status of different types of laughter in our literature, in our culture. So there are different kinds of laughter. We know that there are humor, there is humor, there is satire, there is irony, there are several of them. And yes, these types of laughter, types of comical reflection, they change according to the situation. It doesn't depend only on this historical moment or social situation, but it's rather depend on the changes in outlook of people. And so we have the first thing I am going to tell something like four important for me, moments important for me. So the first one is to underline that for a long time, really, there was a gap with satire in Ukrainian literature and culture. So there was a lack of satire in Ukrainian culture. Something from the 17th century, or even from the beginning of the 17th century, we had very lovely religious polemists in the end of the 16th and the beginning of the 17th century. And then for a long time, we had a lack of satire. We had just only a few satirists, satirical writers. And mainly, our literature and our culture was associated with humor. Yes, with light, with kind humor, with merry laughter, and not with angry, strong satire. So that's the first observation, the lack of satire in Ukrainian literature during the 18th, 19th, and the bigger part of the 20th centuries. Why it is so? And then the presence of light humor. If we just schematize and make the most general model, and then make the most simple opposition in types of laughter. So kind humor and angry satire, light power and hard power, yes, soft power and hard power, then we would say the presence of humor in Ukrainian literature and not the satire for 3 centuries. That's the first point, and this the first observation. The second one, it's the question, but why there is a lack of satire in Ukrainian literature and culture since these 3 centuries? And the answer is because satire, that's a type of humor when laughter acts as a weapon. Satire, it's a type of humor that can condemn, that can mock, that can destroy the reputation or the yes, we know that now Russian army is oftenly mocked as far as their incompetence, yes, and their reputation of this second army in the world is being mocked and is being laughed at. So satire is a weapon, and if your under suppression, if your culture is under suppression, if your land is under occupation or under the control of other state or other powers, the powers from the other part, yes, then we have this control over the satire too. So I mean, yes, I mean the colonial and post-colonial situation of Ukrainian culture deprives the Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian literature of satire. We did have several of our satirists, and we and I'll tell a few words about them. They had really problems, yes, with authorities, with power, and their biographies were quite hard. So everyone who dared to be a satirist from within Ukrainian culture and against the imperial culture, Russian culture, then he was crushed and repressed. So as far as satire is weapon, in imperial structure, metropolia controls the right to satire. So metropolia controls the scope of laughter, the scope of those things that can be laughed at, and those persons who dare to laugh. So this second thing is that as far as satire is the kind of weapon, of verbal weapon, it was controlled, and then Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian literature inside of Russian Empire and then the Soviet Union was also controlled and blocked, banned. And the third thing is that now this weapon is also mobilized. Yes, so as far as we have war, as far as we have the long 8 or 9 years war, and now we have the active phase of the invasion, we have to mobilize all possible weapons and verbal satire too. So now it is mobilized, and it has been mobilized since 8 years already. So since 2014, we had the activization of satirical discourse in our literature and in our culture. And this is the third thing that is understandable and that I'm going to underline. And the fourth one is not connected only with Ukrainian culture and Ukrainian literature, but is more general. But it is connected with these my first three observations and questions I'm going to underline. Yes, the first one is that in true liberal society, all kinds of laughter are possible, and they are not controlled, and they are circulating. So you have the right to be a satirist, you have the right to not to be a satirist and to tend to more kind humor. You can hide your true intentions through ironical statements, or you can use sarcasm. So all in liberal societies, in normal situation, all kinds of laughter all kinds of humor circulate and are possible. And in authoritarian, in conservative societies, there is a tendency to oppress not serious types of humor, of laughter as just pure humor or burlesque or something like this. And in totalitarian societies, there is a tendency to get rid of any laughter, any humor, because it is the suspicion. There is a suspicion that they are going, these different types of humor are going to mock the powers, to mock the chief leader, and so on. As far as it is forbidden, then humor is forbidden too. Now to our presentation. So I think that in general, this is clear. We have now right to satirize, we have now right to mock, and this is the right to defend yourself, but verbally defend yourself. We regained this right once more. To our presentation, so we have the pastiche. In fact, this is not a parody, but a remake or cover, yes, of famous Ilya Repin's picture. Ukrainian Cossacks are writing a letter to Osman Sultan, and you know this is the situation of the 17th century, when Ukrainian Cossacks, these warriors of old times, they received a letter from the Sultan, from the chief of Osman Empire, and he ordered them to surrender, and they answered him with a letter. The letter was rather rude, satirical, and said many unpleasant words about this person, about the chief of Osman Empire. And now we have the soldiers of Ukrainian army that remake this picture of Repin, who then make this letter not only verbal but visual. And then we have this another version, a modern version, and this way we have the return of the position, as those Cossacks in old times were brave enough to answer satirically, to answer with laughter to the chief of great power. We have the same situation now. Our soldiers, our country, we are quite brave to answer with satire and to transform our laughter into a weapon. Yes, so this is the situation when formally deprived and objectified group of persons, yes, they regain, or culture regains its subjectivity, and the subordinate begins to speak, and not only to speak, but also to mock. And we also have a very famous version, shortened version of this letter. Yes, a letter of a group of brave people to a strong power. We have now the shortened version. Please take the next slide. And this is the shortened version of the letter of Ukrainian Cossacks to someone who wants to occupy to make them surrender. Yes, the answer of our border defenders to the Russian missile cruiser, and it became quite important. It became quite popular. So we have the stamp and different prints on T-shirts and other things. So this is the point when Ukrainian satire burns, and this is bright mockery, yes. So this is the point when someone makes another person or another group of persons ridiculous. That's the point of making someone ridiculous. Satire, it's making someone ridiculous and making someone not great, big, and important, but ridiculous, little, and unimportant. And as far as we know, the next step in this drama, yes, the damage and the destroying of this ruin of this ship, then we definitely know that this satirical laughter leads to is the first step to real war. Of course, it is quite. I said at the very beginning that it is somehow strange how laughter is connected with wartime, with war tragedy. But in fact, when we talk about satire, then it is right place, because it is also it is also the part of war. It is a part of discourse of war, and it is verbal aggression in answer against the aggression from the outer position. And we have different types of laughter present here too. So several of them, for example, this is satire. Yes, the next slide, it is also satire. So we can, it is the kind of, when the kind of hard for translation thing, but so it's a typical setting of Ukrainian anecdotes when there are two neighbors, yes, and they are asking each other questions. So how it will be in English, Russian army or Russian army, how it will be in English, and the answer is Russian troops, and it is homophonic with dead bodies. So the co-speaker says, "Oh, it God, how well it sounds." Yes, so we have a kind of satire connected with translation. Then the next slide. So the discourse is rather wide, and I gave here only several slides because we are lacking of time. But of course, anyone knows now this broad spectrum of this meme culture. And here's the type of light humor. Yes, it's a parody. We know this cartoon from Soviet times, and these persons, they are the kind of mafia members, but now they are in another position, and we have this. We have this writing here as a territorial defense of Odessa. Yes, so they are mobilized also to defend Odessa. It's not satirical; it's quite humoristic, light humor. But we also have black humor. Next slide. We have this anti-stress. So the how to get rid of stress for Ukrainians. You have this picture. You can just tore apart the leg of the invader, and yes, it will be very painful for him. So it is also trait, a transformation, one more trait of this transformation of laughter in this under the influence of this war. Some things that were perhaps not forbidden, but not very popular as black humor, so as the mocking of death or something connected with this fear. It is common now, and this black humor discourse in connection with the invaders. Yes, it is quite spread now. So yes, it is common for all that death is something tragical, and it is not possible to mock this tragic situation and to make laughter at tragedies. But it is not connected with the invaders. So the invaders, the death of invaders, it is very common topic for laughter, for satire, for black humor now. So black humor borns when there is a transgression and there is laughter on the primarily forbidden topic for laughter. When something is forbidden to be laughed at, and now it is laughed at as the death of invaders, then we have these bright moments of black humor. So now we have the burst of these different types, and it was not so during our literary history. The next slide. Next slide shows us three pictures, three illustrations of Basilevich to famous Aeneid by Ivan Kotlяревский. And if we ask ourselves whether it is satirical, then we will say no. Aeneid is not a satire. We cannot find anything understandable that is laughed at here. So we have no the clear object of the satire, but we have different. We have a parody. So we cannot say that, for example, Kotlяревский mocks Virgil or Old Aeneid or Cossacks or anything inside Aeneid, inside his poem. But we have different types of humor connected with the for example, language play or with eroticism. So it's a kind of, yes, we know, burlesque poem that is not satirical. We cannot name Ivan Kotlяревский, please, the next slide, satirist. So it is a humor. It is connected more with humor. And then comes the only, and not the only, but a chief from a few our satirists from the 19th century. And in fact, it is till the beginning, till the end of the 20th century, it is our the most influential and most important satirist at all, not only a poet, but a satirist. The next slide. And it is, yes, it is Taras Shevchenko. So we tend to look at Taras Shevchenko as a great romantic poet, yes, of course, but at the same time, he is our greatest satirist in the 19th century. And once again, in these 3 centuries from the beginning of the 18th till the end of the 20th century. So we have no separate satirist. And if we observe the biography of another bright writer of that time, Mykolai Gogol, we will see that when he write his early works on Ukrainian material, those stories that connected with Ukrainian material, вечори на хуторі поблизу Диканьки and others, we'll see that they are penetrated with kind humor, yes, with humor, and later on when he when he shifts to material in the imperial context, then we have him transformed into a satirist. So it is possible to gain the right to be a satirist only when you are in the center of empire in the metropoly, because metropoly has the possibility to mock, and colonies have the possibility only to make burlesque, make humor, and not to satirize, because satire can be the weapon. And the biography of Taras Shevchenko, the author of several very powerful satirical poems as Kavkaz and Son, The Dream and Мертвим і Живим, to those dead and those alive and not born. So his biography totally demonstrates what can happen with those that try to be satirical, to mock the authority, to mock the metropoly, to mock Tsar and the royal family. Because Taras Shevchenko was in fact first imprisoned and then sent to the soldiers several service to army, and sent to Kazakhstan, to faraway steppes, with the forbidding, with the ban to write and to draw, especially because his satirical poems. First of all, for his satirical poems. So the biography of a satirist in the empire can be very dangerous if it is not a satirist that mocks under the control and mocks those things or persons which are allowed to mock. Okay, then the next slide, we have two more satirists from the 19th century, not of that scale as Taras Shevchenko, but they are also very important. It's Ivan Karpenko-Karый. These two, they are from the second part of the 19th century, where the situation was something more liberal, and though they Ivan Karpenko-Karый, who wrote a plays for a theater and satirical plays, he was not repressed at all. But the next one, Volodymyr, the next slide, the next one, Volodymyr Samylenko, yes, he was also repressed. He was several times arrested, and as for his anti-imperial, anti-Russian poems. But the situation was more liberal in comparison with the situation of Taras Shevchenko. So we just have a few of them, which can be called satirists, and much more light humor, and we can recollect other writers, though for me it is important here to show just a few of these satirist writers during these several centuries of Ukrainian literature. Then if we take the next two, one more slide, the most popular, the next, please. The most popular person connected with laughter. And in the first part of the 20th century, Ostap Vishnya, he was extremely popular, though he also mostly deals with humor, not with satire, or his satire is quite connected with day-by-day life and not with politics, for example. At the beginning, he writes very humoristic, light things. But then, at the beginning of the 30s, in the end of the 20th century, he turns to political subjects, and then another biography that demonstrates the fate of person that is connected with laughter. So in 1933, he is arrested, and then he spent 10 years in different in Siberia, in different types of imprisonment. And the next slide, is another author of satirical plays, Mykola Kulish, and he was very bitterly satirical from the very beginning. And that is danger. In 1937, he was executed. As the majority of the editorial board of Ukrainian, Central Ukrainian satirical magazine, Red Pepper, Ukrainський перець. So in the 30s, they were all executed, and this satirical magazine reappeared only during the, also in 10 years, only during the Second World War, when the authorities remembered, yes, that laughter can be also a weapon, and then they returned Vishnya, they returned they returned again the satirical magazine, and so tried to use these things against Nazis. Then the next slide, the second half of the 20th century, Pavlo Glazovy, that's a very, of course, very humoristic writer. His poems are filled with humor, but it is also the demonstration of lack of political satire. He is mainly humorist. He started after Second World War in the 50s, and so it is also demonstration of just a kind humor in Ukrainian literature, and not the satire. And the beginning of the 90th, the last decade of the 20th century, this situation began to change, and we have one very bright person. The next, please, the next slide. It is Les Podrivyansky. He is satirist. He is the central satirist of the end in the end of the 20th century, and he is also political. He is also anti-imperial, anti-Russian, and also very and also connected with obscene lexics. And so we have one more observation now about the change of some statuses of things connected with laughter. So it is, I've said that black humor, so satire renewed, black humor is now has now its rights. so it is more tolerated. Black humor is more tolerated, and obscene lexics is more tolerated. We know that this answer of Ukrainian border defenders to Russian cruiser is built on the obscene answer. It is obscene. It is not. It is uncensored. Yes, and so was the. So is the. So are the works of Les Podrivyansky. But if in 19th it was something like a scandal, it was a scandalous, now it is fully appropriate because we once again turn to satire, we legitimate the satire, we tolerate the satire, and satire, it is quite a rude tool, and it takes rude forms. We also had another humorous and less satire, the next slide, in the writings of those from this group Bubaboo, Neborak, Andruchovich, and Irvanets. From them all, Andruchovich perhaps is more satirical in his novels, and Irvanets, he's in the right. That's another picture from 19th. Irvanets perhaps more satirical in his poems, but they mostly combine the satire with burlesque and humor, and in this situation it lacks the sharpness as far as in, for example, in Les Podrivyansky works, it is more sharp than if we say about Bubaboo. And the next slide, we also have very strong satirical tendencies in women's writings. That's another thing. Women in general don't write anything connected with laughter because they once again is in this social group that is not allowed to speak. That is, they are not allowed to speak loud. Yes, so they are not. They lack the right to make laughter on the more powerful groups of men. So it's once again, as in the situation when colony cannot laugh at metropoly, the same is with the women that are forbidden to make laugh at men, but not this new wave of women writings since the mid of 19th, and we have Oksana Zabushko, and if we on the left top, and if we read her first novel or her short stories like Yamilena, or her first novel from 1996, the field research of Ukrainian sex, then we will have quite a number of satirical episodes there. And also we can say this about Irena Karpa on the right, and more closer to our time, Haiska Sheyan at the bottom. So it's a question for separate topic, but the end of 19th gives the chance to mock also to women. And now we have the very general and very rapid the burst of satire in all forms, in memes, in songs. We have a number of different groups which produce satirical songs, and also in literature. The next slide. Three perhaps main and more sharp nowadays satirists. It's Ivan Semesyuk at the top on the left, and he's also a writer, a poet that writes to this musical group Piraten, that is very popular and have these rude satirical texts. Then we have Antin Mukharsky at the left bottom, and he also has his Antin Mukharsky has his scenic pseudonym Orest Lutый, and as Orest Lutый he wrote this also satirical songs, and also he's the author of satirical texts. And Artem Polezhaka on the right, he's the author of satirical poems. They became all popular after 2014, and not only them. There are many. It's quite a new generation of satirists. And now, the end, the two books which are perhaps most important, crucial for nowadays understanding of nowadays Ukrainian satire. The next slide. It is Pomerana by Taras Antipovich. It's very hard to translate. It's something that is dying, perhaps, and it is a kind of combination of post-apocalyptic world and cyberpunk, and it is also a satire on the very primitive barbaric society, and we can have these different parallels with some understandings of those of that barbarism that, as we discovered now, is quite present, still present in our world. And Taras Antipovich is also a young person, and Bogdan Zholdak, that's late Bogdan Zholdak, is from the older generation, but perhaps it is the most bright satirical book now, Ukry. Ukrs, so shortened with Ukrainian, but it's also now very understandable naming for all those who fight for Ukrainian idea. So Ukry, this collection of short novels, they are interlinked within themselves, and these novelettes, short, very short stories, and they are about this war, but it is a humoristic, from humoristic to satirical, because the invaders, they are regularly mocked in every of these short stories. But these books, they are very bright and very full with laughter and satire, but they were written during after the beginning of the war in 2014, but they were written during 2015, 2016, and now the nowadays Ukrainian satire are in 2022, it is connected more with more operative genres, with first of all with if we say about literature, with poetry, and also so satirical poetry and satirical songwriting, and but we have this very rapid development, and I get this that satirical texts in prose, they are quite close to us, and in the nearest future we'll see new texts, and especially after our victory that we should believe is quite close now. The last slide for our good humor. And that is all I wanted to say, and now we can have the discussion, or I can answer the questions, whatever. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rostislav, and Thomas, please, your comments. But first, may I remind everyone who is watching us that you have the opportunity to post comments and your questions in the comment section of the live broadcast. Please, Thomas.
Thank you very much, Rostislav. It was a pleasure to hear your speech, and as always, very inspiring. We're doing together online seminars for Ukrainian and German students, and it's always a pleasure. You know, and everybody should know, I'm a linguist, not a literary critic, so I cannot comment on the various satirical Ukrainian writers you have named us. I just want to frame the things which you have said in the way I do it as a linguist, and this is no contradiction, I think, but it's just another view on it, or not just it's not another view, it's just maybe another aspect. We are talking about humor if we are talking about satire, and the comical, which makes us laugh, could be divided, I think, between the theories of Bergson, le rire, we are laughing about something in society, and the theory of Sigmund Freud, the wit, so we are laughing about the connection to the unconsciousness. There are two things there. Humor is always an effect of comparison. You have a view of a normal world, and you represent another world as a comparison to it. And if that normal is the psychological background of peoples in a given society, then the comparison would produce something which is normally under taboo in this psychological regime, but may come up in a wit. So this would be the Freudian aspect on that. And of course, because it's about psychology, you will have all those themes which are a taboo in a given society, like most of all sexual issues. The other possibility is to represent the societal life in comparison to what should be or what is, and to mock about behavior of individuals in a given society. And to mock behavior would be the point Bergson is starting from and saying, well, the ridiculous is something which is not allowed or not custom in a given society. And if we take that two possibilities, either to connect humor with the taboo in our psychological education, or to connect humor with standard behavior and showing that some people don't adhere to this standard behavior, to me it becomes more clear what you have said about the lack of political satire in Ukraine since the 17th century, if I got that right. Because everybody, and you mentioned him, of course, then thinks about the Aeneid of Kotlyaevsky, and also about the phenomenon that the Yellow Russian literature also starts with a parody of the Aeneid. And there had been a Russian parody on that too, all at the same time. But I fully adhere to your view that in a situation where which you could describe as a colonial situation, the oppressed are deprived of mocking the behavior of the colonizers. This would be the Bergson thing, and so that there is a lack of satirical, political satire, I should say. I'm fully aware of, I fully agree with you, it has something to do with that colonial situation in Ukraine, and I think not only in Ukraine, but in the Tsarist Russia itself. So when we're asking now, what could be a new means of satire during times of war, I found it very inspiring that you had drawn about black humor. Black humor is normally associated with the Anglophone way of being humorous. And in psychology, it would be connected with a very strong moral education. So the more stronger you are educated in ethical behavior, the more this taboo will break through in violating normal human standards. So, for example, what you have shown us, this antidote against Russians, where you can pull a leg from a Russian soldier to feel better. This would be, in my opinion, black humor, because on the one hand, it violates normal human moral standards, but in this extreme situation of war, which itself is a violation of normal human standards, it becomes acceptable. I think black humor in times of war could be a thing we should elaborate more about that. Is it only mocking the other, like the picture of Repin, now addressed to Putin? Or is it wishing death, wishing violation, wounds, wishing bodily destruction of the other, which would be not accepted in peaceful times, but under the conditions of war becomes acceptable. So to me, it would be expectable that the cartoonist or parodist transformation of reality, which we could call a multimodal parody or so, will become more violent or more in the style of black humor under the situation of war. The last thing which you mentioned, I found also very interesting, the gender-specific humor, which I think could also be explained by the Bergson paradigm, that humor in the Bergson sense is mocking uncommon or not allowed behavior, and a society which will assign standard behavior to the genders will also be restrictive in the way this or that individual may express him or herself according to gender. I think this is a very fine and specific observation, which comes all to the point that your material is analyzable by the Bergson paradigm. And now that is my question to you, Rostислав, because you know the material and you know it much better than me. Would you agree to say that the violation of normal behavior during the war will produce new ways of mocking behavior? Because if non-standard or even non-human behavior becomes a norm in war, then also the satirical representation of this behavior will change. I have only this question, but again, thank you very much for your profound speech and all the materials you have presented to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. And yes, of course, it is very good that you underline these two paradigms, yes, by Bergson and by Sigmund Freud, because they are quite different, yes, in the understanding of why we laugh at all, what is comic, and how the satire is born. And for Bergson, yes, satire is a kind of punishment, yes, that can be used in the society. And now we see this in the wartime, because it is a punishment also.
I think Rostислав seems to have some
We lost Rostислав.
troubles. I think he will reconnect. Yeah.
Okay, when we started,
hopefully.
it started when we started to talk about Bergson and Freud. Perhaps internet is not ready for this. So I thank you for these two theoretical contexts, because we of course understand that it is possible to analyze through Bergson and through Freud. And then to the question, yes, the aggression is accumulated during war, and it is also true if we talk about laughter. Yes, laughter became more aggressive, and people's behavior in general became more aggressive. And after the war, we will have to make a certain work, yes, to make things easier, because this violence, this aggression, they will be aggregated, and we will have this effect not only in life in general, but also in such kinds of life as laughter. Yeah, we will have more aggressive laughter. I think that those things so I think that this polemics, some quarrels which were quite soft several years ago, for example, literary polemics, yes, they will become more hard, they will become more angry, and we'll have, yes, this appearance of aggression, more aggression in life in general and in comic sphere, in laughter and humor also. So it's the sad, another sad legacy of wartime. Another sad legacy of wartime.
Yeah, thank you, Rostislav. Thomas, probably if you have any more comments, questions.
I would like to add, Rostislav, I see it the same way. War will change the limits of psychological and societal behavior, and it will be a great difficulty after the victory of Ukraine to return to a peaceful life and to restore usual moral standards. It is, how could I say, politicians would love to unite people by some strong paroles, warlike, as you may say, and I think that would be the task for the civil society of Ukraine, to identify itself not with the standards of war, but with the newfound peace. There's a problem in this transformation from war to peace, not only in the transformation from peace to war. That's what I wanted to add.
Yes, but perhaps on the other side, as Freud observes it, yes, so humor is a kind of cure to these war traumas, and for Freud, in his this monography on wit, it is humor is more connected with the recovery from trauma, because wit, it is something quite maybe perhaps unpleasant for those against which these witty remarks are delivered, and so wit is more aggressive, though he sees wit something as a combination of satire and irony, ironic. Wit is ironic, but humor is something that helps to cure the trauma, and I guess that it is also a question how to use its potential. How to use its potential to make easier this return to normal life. So perhaps it is the way to so perhaps it is the way to think how to combine these things, these types of laughter to make the situation more harmonic after this, after wartime. So I just want to say that humor has the curing, anti-traumatic potential.
That's right.
We have a question, actually, I think a bit in a continuation of this talk. And this is a question from Romchik. I will read it. We all have seen that limits where the satire ends changed with the war. But where is the real point of these limits today if you want to pay attention to a problem in Ukrainian society and in the same time not to rock the boat of our fragile situation?
Satire is always rocking the boat. So satire is a strong attack, comical attack. So if you are not, if you're not going to ruin something, then you don't use satire. You use humor, light irony, something more easier, because satire it's a kind of metaphorical. Homicide, but in this, so in metaphorical.
Oh.
Yeah, I apologize. There's some troubles with connection, but yeah, Rostislav is back.
It's a kind of Schrödinger type lecture. Yes, present and not present. So it is the danger of making all our polemics more severe just now, and so there will be the rocking the boat. But for example, now you can see, you can perhaps observe an interesting trait in nowadays laughter. If you think about memes and about anecdotes about President Zelensky, I mean. So before the war, he was, as presidents before him, he was the object of mockery. Yes, he was mocked in different ways. But now they stopped to mock him because he is not that president from the pre-war times. He is now a commander-in-chief, and he is not a person that can be mocked at. So it's automatically changed. It's about the rocking the boat. No one mocks now the political power of our country. Yes, because no political satire inside, because it is important to survive, and we have to do it together. And all satirical blows, they are pointed.
Yeah. Yeah. Guess.
That's it.
Yeah, they're pointed outside, I think. If I may, and if there is any more questions, please write them. But I have actually a question in continuation of that, whether there are any taboo in satire in Ukraine today. You mentioned one where it's not joking about our political, like our commanders in chief, let's say. But are there any others? Because I remember previously when I shown to my friend the issue of Charlie Hebdo, a lot of people were disgusted by that, because a lot of satire was unacceptable, even in a more like, liberal thinking and forward-looking networks, let's say. But I guess some of the lines are blurred and moved and reframed now. But are there any other taboo left in satire?
Yes, I think that many of them. For example, the army is traditionally not in Ukraine, not only in Ukraine, but in general in different countries. Army is traditionally an aim for this mockery. So these soldiers that were or generals that are straight-minded and so on and so forth. So army is an aim for mockery. But not during the war, perhaps, our army. Yes, so our army is not mocked, and the army of...
Yeah. I can only apologize, but that's the realities of having a lecture in Kyiv today, because Rostislav and I are in Kyiv.
Oh, it's possible to return quickly, perhaps. So we can find some taboos, and it is they are all perhaps connected with ourselves. So war made the world more black and white, and so as far as we consider ourselves white and just, so it is impossible to make laughter at different things that belongs to this part of discourse. Yes, so our people that our victims, it's a tragedy, and perhaps it is not possible to laugh at them. And it was connected with these cartoons, political cartoons by Charlie Hebdo. Charlie Hebdo is a great challenge. They are so liberal that it's a great challenge for even for French society that is very, very liberal. Yes, to this extent. So when they draw this picture of missiles and women attacked by missiles, it was too much for us because it was painful for us, and for them that was just another way to mock the invaders, because they didn't want to mock our tragedy. It was another way to mock the invader, but this way was not accepted by us, and they have this. They are the ultimate specialists of black humor, Charlie Hebdo. And you risk each time.
Yeah. I actually, yeah.
Just the last remark. I had a talk with Charlie Hebdo correspondent just after this cartoon. He came to Ukraine to put the cartoons of our cartoonists, Ukrainian cartoonists, to Charlie Hebdo, and he met with several people. And he said, that's our style. That day when the half of our editorial board was killed by terrorists, the next day we make funny cartoons about that, because we everything took this way. So that's but in our situation it is too liberal. Yes, perhaps not can be accepted so easily in this situation.
Yeah. Thank you. I actually remember this cartoon that you've talking about with missiles attacking women, I think. Yeah. And I remember that, the reaction for it haven't been really, it haven't been well received, I think. Yeah. I don't see any other questions, probably due to the problems in broadcast. If Thomas, if you have any, or
May I?
yeah, please.
May I? Because Rostislav, you had also elaborated that in a liberal society there are all these kinds of humor, and I think it's worth thinking about that. Making a humorous communication is always establishing a bond between the speaker and the hearer on an empathic level. So both know what they're laughing about without really naming it. That what is the point to laugh is not depicted in a sense, but it is the humorous effect comes from comparison of the communicate with a shared reality of the communicants. So sadly you cannot hear me, I think. You did not hear me. Yeah. I said that the humorous effect is a comparison of what you say and the shared reality of speaker and hearer. And so it is always affirming between speaker and hearer that they have the same reality. And this is what makes it, I think, so dangerous for oppressive regimes, that the individuals can unite themselves in a consciousness of shared reality. And well, I will not go into details, but if you look the situation in Western Europe with cancel culture and the like, then you see what is not allowed to laugh about in our societies without a war. So laughing and humor is always a very good indicator for the liberality of a society. This I wanted to add.
Yeah. Rostislav, if you have any comments, anything to add?
Yes, it was very important, and I'll try to return to this later. Yes, to this idea of yes, it's a kind of networking. Yes, of uniting different people with similar types of humor, sense of humor, and then appears. Yes, it is so. Appears as the mutual. Unspoken communication, yes, because we know what things we can laugh at. We have this, if we are already the part of this group, yes, then it can be understandable. So it is important that the kind of networking against the regime, and this phenomena of anecdotes in Soviet times, you know, there is anecdote when those people are in the same room, and but they are afraid of that someone can spy for them, and they are not talking anecdotes to each other. They are just naming the numbers. Someone says number 3, and everyone laughs because they know about this anecdote number 3 being already. That's they just saying numbers and they are laughing at, and not to be spied. So that's very That's your saying. What's your
Yeah,
saying?
and if I may, so from sociological perspective, in this way, it works. Satire and humor works as a reaffirming identity and social group and ties and networks.
Yeah, especially
Yes.
when someone mocks at someone, then we are laughing at them. So of course, it is cement for identity, the best one. Yeah. So we now have
And we
this.
should
Yes,
we could add that in the former GDR, the communist part of Germany, it had a great tradition of satirical cabaret, and this was allowed. So keeping satire in certain limits will have that identical effect on identity without harming the powerful people. So we have to have that in mind, that if you have cabaret or so, it is not per default a sign for a liberal society. It's the limits you may mock on. They had it in the GDR really strong, and they were proud of it, but it is, in fact, it was tamed. So you couldn't mock about everything. So it's always about the limits.
Yeah.
That's a possibility to think. Yeah.
Yeah, Rostislav, if
But
you have any
that's the
final
point with
comments.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I agree that these limits of mockery, that's a future challenge, and it also connected with that question from our listener in comments. So when we qualify the situation as we should not rock the boat, or when we qualify the situation that we should achieve more justice through the satire, also through the satire. So it is a kind of regulation, a tool of regulations inside the society, one of the tools. So it is also important to use it, but yes, in certain limits. So for centuries, we were forbidden, we were deprived of the satirical discourse, but now we return to satirical discourse, and now we have to learn the limits, perhaps. And as it is in free societies, those who takes the responsibility produces for his or her freedom, he or she should produce the limits for himself or herself, something like this.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rostislav. Thank you, Thomas. We actually over the time limit already a bit. Despite all these technical problems, I thank you, you both, and I thank everyone in the audience. We'll see again each other next in 2 weeks on the lecture with Olesia Ostrovska-Luta. But today again, I thank Rostislav and Thomas, and have a good evening, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Rostislav.
bye.
Thank you, Anna. Goodbye.
Yeah.
If Ukraine does not survive, the United Nations will not survive. Have no illusions.